really happen? Probably not. It's a symbolic gesture. If it had happened, there would be other historical sources that said it had happened. Excuse me, I ate just before I got on. I probably shouldn't have. Um, and at that time, cosmic occurrences were used to reinforce special events. So, for example, there was a comet upon Julius Caesar's death. And there are many instances in the Bible where darkness is used. In Exodus story, darkness over the land was one of the plagues. The prophets associated darkness with mourning and God's judgment. Jeremiah refers to the sun setting at midday. Zephaniah and Joel refer to a day of darkness and gloom. And Amos in the 8th century threatens judgment upon Israel with the sun going down at noon and darkening the earth in broad daylight. So the sun going down, disappearing, the land being in darkness from 12 to 3 while Jesus was on the cross was a way of signifying that this was a very special event that was happening. Now I'm going to read the 3 p.m. passage. And I've been usually doing some thought before the passage and then ending with the passage, but today I'm going to continue with some thoughts after the passage. 3 p.m. At 3 o'clock, Jesus cried out with a loud voice, Eloi, Eloi, lema sabachthani, which means, my God, why have you forsaken me? When some of the bystanders heard it, they said, listen, he is calling for Elijah. And someone ran, filled a sponge with sour wine, put it on a stick, and gave it to him to drink, saying, wait, let us see whether Elijah will come to take him down. Then Jesus gave a loud cry and breathed his last. And the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. Now when the centurion who stood facing him saw that in this way he breathed his last, he said, truly, this man was God's son. There were also women looking on from a distance. Among them were Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of James the younger and of Joseph and Salome. These used to follow him and provided for him when he was in Galilee. And there were many other women who had come up with him to Jerusalem. Now there's a lot packed into this little passage. We'll start with these last words of Jesus. My God, why have you forsaken me? These words are the first words of Psalm 22. And there are many references to Psalm 22 in this story of Jesus' last day on earth. The mocking of him as he suffers, as he approaches death. And then there's the soldiers casting lots for his garments. That's also in Psalm 22. Mark uses Psalm 22 to express this sense of abandonment that Jesus would have felt, the anguish, the suffering. But Psalm 22 doesn't end that way. If you read Psalm 22, it ends in vindication. It ends triumphantly. And Mark uses this psalm because this is the way Christians feel about Jesus too, that he was vindicated, his death was vindicated, and he will come out of this triumphant eventually. The temple curtain being torn in two, what does that mean? The temple curtain was the curtain that separated God from everyone else. So there was an area in the very back of the temple called the Holy of Holies, and no one was allowed in there. That's where the presence of God was known to be. The priest was the only one allowed in there, the high holy priest, and only once a year on the Day of Atonement. So we have this curtain being torn in two, which meant two things. First of all, it was a judgment of those temple authorities. It was a judgment of their collaboration with the Roman imperial authorities, but it was also seen as access to God. So Jesus' death represents everyone being able to have access to God anytime and anywhere, not just one person on one day. And then we have this centurion who stood at the foot of the cross, who said, "Truly, this man was God's son." Now, the centurion is a Roman soldier. He is the first human in the gospel to refer to Jesus in this way, as God's son. But we have to remember that the Romans saw Son of God as the emperor of Rome. That was one of his titles. He was the Son of God. So for this Roman soldier to make this confession, to profess that this is God's son, well, it's possible he could be killed for that too. This was a traitorous thing for him to say. And then we have the women. The women are the ones who remain with Jesus through all of this. Now, we could say that it's the men who were in danger of being arrested by the Roman soldiers for being followers of Jesus, that they wouldn't have arrested the women. But it was still a time of fear. It was still a time when all followers of Jesus would have been looked at with suspicion. But it was the women who remained, who stood by him. It's also the women who appear first in our Easter story. So the women play a significant role in our story on Good Friday and on Easter Sunday. And no matter how hard the church has throughout the years tried to minimize the role of women, they had a major role. And they followed Jesus because he represented something, a liberation, an equality, a welcome of all people. So that's our 3 p.m. story. I'm going to come back at 6 p.m. for the final part of the story on Good Friday. But I'm going to share with you one more piece of music. Catherine Arcan-Panett recorded some music for us to use, and this one has not been used yet. It's a beautiful, beautiful song of Mary, Mother of Jesus, and how she may have felt upon watching her son suffer and die on that cross. So I'm going to play that song for you. This time I'm not going to remain sitting, so you can I'll go off screen while you listen to the music. So I probably won't say this right, but the title of the music is Vidit Suum. And again, thank you, Catherine, for doing this for us.